Boom, baby! What's going on? I am fired up to bring you our guest today. And I'm going to get into her bio in just a second, but Tracy is the reason this podcast exists. We were in a mastermind call, and she said, Jake, enough with the BS, enough dancing around. You need to be doing this podcast. And I said, yes, ma'am. And I did it. And 30 days later, we had launched this. So before we do anything, I want to give a shout out to Tracy and just let you guys know that if there's anything you take away from this, it's that you listen to people that you respect, that you look up to, that you're inspired by, and then do what they say. Because if they have your best interest in mind, they're probably going to give you some great advice. And that's what I want you to take away from today. So let me tell you a little bit about Tracy O'Malley. Tracy doesn't have your typical highlight reel bio, which is also what makes her remarkably gifted at identifying your blind spots and success blocks. This multi-millionaire entrepreneur you see today was not set up for success. In fact, the odds were stacked against her. Tracy has been arrested, been a blackout drunk, divorced with 2 little kids, and broke, and had to build her life and business from rock bottom without the friends, network, and family support that many people assume she must have had in deep supply. After reaching the top 1% of network marketers in the world, going from zero to millionaire in just 26 months, Tracy's mission shifted. Now her primary focus is coaching individuals, couples, and professional corporate teams to leverage their natural strengths and stressors to achieve unstoppable success. Tracy has a unique coaching style where she uses the Enneagram framework to uncover the patterns of how you interrupt the world, navigate your emotions, and interpersonal relationships. You can connect with Tracy on Instagram at Tracy_O'Malley and get direct weekly coaching in your ear by subscribing to her popular podcast, The Leadership Formula. Tracy, welcome to the show.
Hey, my friend. It's such an honor to be here. You made this podcast happen. I just gave you a loving kick in the ass from one Enneagram 8 to another. I knew I could say it like that to you and you would get it and not go cry in the corner. So,
Oh yeah, no, you were 100% correct in how I wanted to be told what I needed to do because I love when people don't beat around the bush. Just tell me what is necessary, tell me what we need to get done, and that's what happens, right? And so this is one of your superpowers. Like we're just going to start here. This is one of your superpowers is you recognized, oh, I'm an Enneagram 8, and we did a whole episode on your podcast talking about this and really breaking this down. And so you knew exactly how I needed to hear something that would help me move forward. And so I would love to know for people maybe that aren't too familiar with the Enneagram approach and the framework, can you give a brief overview of what it is and why people should care as business owners and authors?
yeah. And, I was introduced to the Enneagram by my therapist 10 years ago in rehab. So clearly, I was not in a great place when I was introduced to this. In fact, when my therapist said, "Hey, I want you to take this assessment," I basically told her to fuck off and said, "I don't need another label. I don't want to be put in a box." And she's also an Enneagram 8. And you're right. We love direct, straight shooting, like tell it like it is. And she did. She was, "My dear, your best thinking has gotten you here. And quite honestly, this is going to help you get out of the box. Not only the world has put you in, but you've put yourself in." And I was like, well, shit, she's got a point there. And, we see things like human design, Enneagram, Myers Briggs, astrology. And I love anything that opens us up for more self awareness. But quite often, people use these tools, they're all tools. We use them to stay stuck or as an excuse to put ourselves in a box. To play small. We can also use it as weapons on other people. And this is not what this is about. You must use these things in integrity for yourself and when you're leading others. And what I love about the Enneagram, aside from everything else, next to my faith, the Enneagram is right there with it. And honestly, the Enneagram helps me stay in faith more often. But what I love about the Enneagram versus all the other stuff is it's kind of nature and nurture collide. Like we have this divine makeup that I believe we all, before we're even born, we have this soul blueprint that we have. Now, then we're dropped into families, experiences, situations, cultures, traumas, whatever that is, and it can change the expression of it. And then, by the time we get to the end of our life, we're trying to get back to the innocence of who we were the whole time, right? It takes this full circle thing to have happen. Unfortunately, so many of us don't do it till we're like on our deathbed or at the end of the life. And what the Enneagram can provide you is this framework and a system to help you get back to your soul, like the soul roadmap you were always destined to be on. And you bring in the wisdom of the experiences, the traumas, the family life, the friends, all the things you bring the wisdom with the soul blueprint, and that's how you're able to step into the best version of yourself. And when I was introduced to this, like I said, I wasn't in my best spot. And I was 40 years old at the time. This was 10 years ago. And I was like, shit, I'm making a train wreck out of this life. And even though on paper I looked okay for the most part, other than, getting arrested and all that shit. Like I can make shit happen. Eights do. We just make it happen. And in fact, we tend to stir the pot to make things happen because we love intensity. And, the beauty in this is, first of all, knowing I didn't have to change who I was. Like I'm still an intense mother effer. That's not changing. But that intensity, is a superpower when it's coming from love, compassion, empathy, service, and grace. That same intensity was and can be a wrecking ball in my life when it's coming from fear, insecurity, unworthiness, shame, guilt, or ego. So the beauty in the Enneagram and understanding the framework is not changing who you are. It's getting to the best space mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, so that your come from can be from the right place. And that's where the magic happens in this. But understanding the full framework, because it's one thing to know the best version of an 8 is this. Getting there, you need a little support. And that's where the entire beauty in the framework of the Enneagram come into play. And that's where I come in. Like I'm an integration specialist. Like, I'm not just here to tell you, oh, great, Jake, you're an 8. Have fun with that. Like, fuck that. Like, what are you going to do with that? Right. And knowing what to do with it and understanding your framework is the secret sauce in all of this. And so I fell in love with it 10 years ago. Mainly the biggest aha for me was recognizing that I spoke one language and in one way. And although I could move the needle, most people I could get people to do what I wanted them to do because they were afraid of me. And that isn't leadership. That's like a dictatorship, and I had 2 teenagers at the time. They're now in their 20s. And I could recognize that I didn't have 2 8s that I gave birth to. And no wonder, the messaging wasn't landing on their hearts and in their heads the way that I intended, because I was only speaking my language. When I learned how to speak their languages, everything shift in our home. And then I started bringing it into business, and I couldn't have done that 0 to $1 million in 2 years without this. Like no chance in hell. And so with me using it the first 5 years just by myself, I never even talked about the Enneagram. I just used it as a tool. I recognized that people needed this tool in their toolbox too. And it became trendy at the time, and it was pissing me off. I was like, what the fuck? These people, like, this is more than just this cutesy little test. It's actually way more than that. And so it pissed me off enough to lead from the front of the pack with the Enneagram. And that's how this whole consulting business started. But it's been fun, and it's been awesome to give people this tool and show them how to use it so they can make magic in their life and in their homes.
And it's so powerful. And I think you mentioned so many good things just there. But for me, when I hear you talk about this, like I am one of those people who heard about the Enneagram and was just like, I don't really give a shit. Like why?
Right.
I don't want to have another thing. Like I've taken these tests and then I never open them again, or I never think about them again. And when we did our interview and we really broke down what my number is, what my typing is, and kind of how I can understand things, it really helped me understand myself better. Mm-hmm. And when we understand ourselves better as human beings, we can move faster towards the things we actually desire. And so, what once was this like foofy Enneagram thing is now something that I'm like, this is a tool in my arsenal that can help me become a better entrepreneur, both for myself and my vision, a better boyfriend for me and my girlfriend, a better son to my parents, better brother, and a better friend. And so I think it's really, really important here that we recognize that any tool that we can utilize and any tool that we can be taught by someone who knows how to effectively utilize it, mm-hmm. that is a massive advantage that you have. My question to you, though, is you were at the time, you mentioned 10 years ago, you're learning this and you weren't at your best. What do you think it was for yourself that was open to receiving the learning of Enneagram at that time?
Well, it was a perfect storm, quite honestly. And had I learned about it maybe 2, 3 years earlier, I probably would have been like, I don't, what the hell do I need this for? Or I would have figured out that I could use it to manipulate, honestly. But it was a perfect storm. I knew that I wanted to be a better mom. I wanted to know the way, go the way, and show the way. The people that we love and lead, if you're a parent or, you're in a leadership position, they're going to do what you do, not what you say to do. And although I could talk a good game, I wasn't necessarily following my own lead in that talk. And I think, pain and conflict can be the biggest catalyst for growth. And so often we work to avoid that. And I was just at this humbling moment where it's like, clearly my best thinking has gotten me here, and it's not working the way that I want it to. And I'm starting to see patterns repeat in my teenagers that I don't want for them, because I was, if you don't repair it, you repeat it. And I was a product of that even though I fought against every bit of that in my own personal life. I was repeating history, and that's why generational shit continues. And this allowed me, not just like you said, I can move the needle probably faster than most people, personally and professionally, but I meet it with compassion as well, where sometimes we'll see things about ourselves and we can understand ourselves, but we pull out the whipping stick on top of it, or the shame stick, and the shame just keeps us stuck. And when we can meet ourselves humbly and with compassion and understanding, like, yeah, Enneagram 8s are typically known as the biggest assholes on the Enneagram. That wasn't a fun realization. It really, really wasn't. But I can use that to leverage myself, have compassion about why we are the assholes we are sometimes when we're not great. And all the other Enneagram types have their own little thing too, right? But using that, instead of saying, God, I'm a piece of shit, I'm like, you know what? I can use that same grit and intensity and perseverance and decisiveness as a strength. The fact is I'd been using it as an asshole for a long, long time, but how can I turn this into using it as a strength where people actually feel protected, safe, supported, empowered, instead of bullied and controlled, right? I'm still the same fucking person. It's the come from that changes. And the Enneagram gave me a fast pass right direction, which is what I was severely lacking in my life.
Yeah, it's interesting because I want to break this down for everybody here, and
Yeah.
so I know you know this stuff better than anybody out there, and so I know that what I'm about to ask of you is going to be a challenge, but I think you're up for it. What I want to do here is I want to break down what are the different types of the Enneagram framework, and a very very brief, because I know this is materials, there
Yeah.
books, everything. We could go on for this for hours and hours, but what I'd love for us to do here is for everyone that's listening, I'd love for us to just give a super quick, generalized, like, what are the different types, how many are there, and what is each one? And the reason I want to do that is because I think that it's so important for someone to start to see, like, oh, that could be me. Oh, I'm definitely that type of person. Because the back half of this interview, we're going to break down specifically how this is going to pertain to you as an author, as an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
as a leader, and a business owner. So, Tracy, if it's not too much trouble, how many different types of the Enneagram framework are there? And what is a brief understanding of each one?
I love it, and I will move fast. I will move very, very fast. And like you have alluded to, this is not complicated, but it is very complex. And trust me, there's tons of, like, I could talk about this 24/7 and never have repeated myself. Seriously, there's so much, and it's so valuable. There's 9 basic types, and those 9 basic types are bulked into 3 different categories. You're going to sense a theme. There's like a thing of threes in the Enneagram, right? And so there's 3 centers of intelligence, and within each center of intelligence is 3 Enneagram types. And we use all 3 of these centers of intelligence, but wherever your type lands is where you dominate. So the body or gut center of intelligence, which is where you and I fall, houses the 8, the 9, and the 1. All 3 of these types are motivated by something very, very similar, and that's independence and autonomy. And that's how we knew you weren't a 3 and you were actually an 8, because you and I both mistyped as 3s, but we're not. So the 8, the 9, and the 1 are motivated by independence and autonomy. How the 8 goes after it is they do that with aggression, and their independence and autonomy comes in not being betrayed or violated. They don't want to be put in a vulnerable situation. So they're more aggressive with maintaining that independence and control. How a 9 does it is they seek it through harmony in their environment and within. So they are a little more passive looking. They're not always very passive, but they appear very passive, and they kind of shut down their own feelings in order to get that, including being a little bit procrastinating or stubborn, right? But again, they're still going after independence and autonomy. The ones do that with righteousness, right? They're the sheriff in town. The one is about being good and right, and that's how they maintain control, independence, and autonomy. And their kind of underlying emotion is also anger. Like the 8 is external with it, the 9 shuts it down, the 1 is internal with it. Okay. Now, in the heart or feeling center of intelligence are 3 different types: the 2, the 3, and the 4. All 3 are motivated by a need for significance. Now, how that looks is very different for all 3 types. Their underlying emotion for all 3 types is also shame. How that looks for each one is very different. The 2, the helper, seeks significance in what they do for other people, right? They're the master communicators and relationship builders on the Enneagram. They're the empaths, the compassion. I mean, they're amazing when they're healthy, right? The 3s find significance in what they do achieve or how they appear in the world. We all want to be an achiever, right? Let's like see the goal, hit the goal. That is like the motto of the 3. And the 4s seek significance on this internal scale. They want to know that they're being their most authentic self all the time. They're the creatives, the artists, the musicians, the comedians that fall into this. Now, for all 3, that shame looks very different. The 2s external with it. When they feel like they're missing the mark, you'll feel their shame. 3s, they shut it down like the 9 shuts down anger. The 3 shuts it down and just moves on to another goal as to not express it, but it's there and they feel it. The 4s internalize that shame, right? They're like, something's missing in me. That's where their shame goes. And finally, in the head or thinking center of intelligence are the 5, the 6, and the 7. And these guys are forward thinkers. So fear and anxiety is their underlying emotion. Again, this will look all different for all 3. All 3 are also motivated by a need for some kind of certainty, also looking very different amongst the 3 of them. The 5s want certainty. They're also the most introverted on the Enneagram. They're called the investigator. They want certainty that they are equipped and energetically capable of handling anything. So they're information and energy hoarders. So it's a lot of time we don't get their wisdom because they're like, I don't want to be depleted, right? But it's still a need for certainty. The 6s need certainty that they're not going to be blindsided and that they're always prepared for worst case scenario. And 7s, the enthusiasts, the 6s are called the loyalists. The 7s are called the enthusiasts, the enthusiastic visionary. They need certainty that all options are available to them at all times, and they will never like be put in a box more than any other type. They want to know that all things are available and anything's possible. Now, how that looks when it doesn't go well for them, their anxiety or fear, the 5s internalize it. Very rarely will you see a 5 losing their shit, right? The 6s, this is the one type on the Enneagram where sometimes they'll internalize it. Most of the time, 6s, especially if you're pushing their need for certainty, they'll be more external with their fear and anxiety and almost look like a little tornado. And the 7s shut down that fear and anxiety by bouncing to the next shiny object, right? So you can see where understanding the centers of intelligence will really help you narrow down who you're talking to without saying, hey, what's your Enneagram type? Because quite honestly, any of these online assessments, 65 to 70% of the time, they're inaccurate anyway. And you don't want to like have people on guard with like, oh shit, you're asking me my Enneagram type. You're going to try and control me or put me into a situation or psychoanalyze me. So how I used this for the first 5 years was mastering understanding those 3 centers of intelligence. And just knowing that will help you narrow down very, very quickly who you're speaking to and how to communicate best with them to either lead them, motivate them, empower them, or love them, quite honestly.
Let's go, Tracy. Come on.
Ah,
That was good. So what I want you to do right now, listening to this, is pause
Yeah.
it, rewind it, listen to it again, and start to try to think a little bit about it because there's a ton of information. Like she
Yeah.
said, she can go on and on and on. There's so much good stuff, and she knows everything. But just from that, you might start to be like, oh, I do this. Oh, maybe I'm one, two, or three, like one, two, or three options of those nine. Like maybe you're still trying to figure it out. If that's the case and you want more, just go to Tracy, ask her, hop
Yeah.
in those DMs, ask her to do a session with you. Like, this is what she does. This is how she works and coaches with entrepreneurs and companies and couples. So if you want more, just go ask her. And
Or
watch.
listen to the podcast. I've got like over 250 episodes that like break a lot of this stuff down. So
Yeah, and watch her content on social. She does these really cool reels where she'll break down how the different Enneagram types react to different situations, like in the bedroom or for schoolwork or whatever it is.
yeah.
And it's really fun. And I watch them, and she's just spot on. She's got her outfit changes, and it's beyond seeing you have fun with it, Tracy. It is really a valuable way for all of us to learn a little bit more about each other. And I think one of the biggest things that excites me about this in the way that you've been able to use the Enneagram is we're very divided as a community and as a
Yeah.
society right now. And one of the things that I love about the way you approach the Enneagram is the fact that it's to bring people together.
Yeah.
It's a way of taking people from all different backgrounds, people that have been misunderstood their whole life, people that have always thought they had something wrong with them because of something. And it's giving people permission to be who they are and then to be able to better communicate that, which is bringing people together, ultimately resulting in millions of dollars being made in the businesses you work with, better relationships for the couples you work with, and individuals just becoming stronger of who they are. So awesome, awesome stuff. All right. Now we got to get into the good stuff here. Not
Yeah.
that we haven't gotten into the good stuff, but we like the good stuff. So you're an author. I'm
Yep.
an author. What I would love to know here is if someone is wanting to write their book or in the process of writing their book, how can their understanding their Enneagram type help them complete their book so that they can actually achieve that dream of getting their book published and launched rather than shelving it for the next 4 years?
Oh my gosh. And you know this as well as anybody, probably more than anyone I know is, I mean, I bet you hear it all the time. Oh my gosh, I've got a book in me. I've always wanted to write a book. People tell me all the time I should write a book, right? And like we see the end goal and it looks glamorous and beautiful and the cover and oh my gosh. But then you get into the nitty-gritty of the process and holy shit, does it expose every insecurity, fear, vulnerability that you have. And especially when you're figuring out the content you want to add into it, whether it's personal, professional, a little bit of both, it's going to expose some of your old wounding or, the things that you've kept under a rock forever. And understanding your Enneagram type, when I was doing it, I was super resistant. Like I knew, and it isn't like my book's not that great, but I got it done. And I worked, I took contrary action from what a typical 8 would do when they feel vulnerable, which is usually fight, right? But me understanding myself and knowing that I fear, like vulnerability is very scary for me. And I was about to drop some shit on the world that not everybody's heard and maybe some family wasn't going to hear. And, leaning into the parts of me that know, and understanding my framework and where I need to go to be the best version of myself was required. When you understand your own blind spots and you meet them with compassion, you're able to push through, not pushing through to bypass, but pushing through to get to acceptance and transformation. So you can put the very best of you in that book and out in the world. And you can feel really freaking good that you did it. Is the writing in my book great? No, it's not. It's not like bestseller worthy, but you know what? It's freaking great because I did it. And the number of people it has helped, that's all that matters. Because when we get outside of ourselves, the Enneagram can also help you get out of your own way and stop making shit about you all the time. And we all do it. We all do it. Right. But if you're really writing a book, are you writing it to serve and help, which is what most of you say you want to do with your book? Right. And if that's actually true, then why the hell are you freaking out over a hair misplaced on a cover or I didn't say this right or whatever? And this is where, again, the Enneagram and understanding your type will allow you to lean into more of that faith, regardless of what you believe in a higher power or any power. Really leaning into like, yes, I know that I have a voice that needs to be spoken for somebody out there that is where I was XYZ amount of time ago, and just moving forward through it and meeting yourself with compassion again. There are definitely some types that will be a little bit more perfectionistic, or, especially you as their guide, knowing this information, like, and how to pull it out of them in a leadership kind of way will be important for you, right? People want, like, for many people, writing a book is like this vision board moment. It really, really is. And it's not, like, not to be taken lightly. And if you've gotten the train out of the station here and you are ready to do it, you want to understand yourself at such a beautiful level to know, like, this process is going to expose parts of you. Not, maybe not publicly, but to yourself. It certainly did for me. And when we can navigate that and move it faster, it doesn't mean that life isn't going to hit you upside the head, or some of these vulnerable moments won't clobber you, because they will. But how fast you can move through it without bypassing it will allow you to move the needle and make the impact that you are here to make. And it's interesting when I work with people, knowing their Enneagram type and all of that, because they come to you, right, for help, yet they're working against the very thing that they want, which is help, right? And if you don't know how to speak to their fears or to their core motive, they're going to feel like they wasted money with you, or that, you know what, maybe I'm just a fraud and I shouldn't be doing this. And then the miracles and the beauty and the gifts that you have don't get brought to the world. So understanding yourself at that level, yeah, you're going to have moments where you just want to kick the walls and, throw some punches or just hide under a rock. But if you're taking on this process of writing a book, knowing yourself deeply will allow you to put the very best content in that book and out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, when people write a book, it is a big deal.
It
And it
is.
should be a big deal because it's an exciting moment, often a dream come true moment for a lot of people. And look, everybody's going to have a different story to tell. Everyone's going to tell their story in a different way. And everybody's going to have a different product than what they originally thought they were going to have. Because as you write your book, you evolve. Your voice evolves. Your ability to share who you are evolves. Your knowingness of who you are evolves. And so I think as you're talking about this, it is really great for people to know more about themselves before they begin. It's great to know your Enneagram type before you begin writing. And there's going to be emotions. We've had clients that literally call it the biggest healing process they've ever done.
Mm-hmm.
We have people that say, this was the easiest thing I've ever done because there was a very clear framework in your program and I just followed it from A to Z. We have other people who writing the book is the most difficult thing that they've ever done because of how they view it, right? Which comes back to how they view themselves. And there's so many different angles here when it comes to writing a book. But the ultimate thing here, and this is how we're going to kind of wrap up, is you have to be aware of who you are to achieve the success that you truly desire. And to have the Enneagram framework as a tool can help you get there faster. And so, Tracy, as we wrap up, I would love to know what is one thing related to the Enneagram that if someone was like, I need to learn more about this, I need to understand this because I'm my own biggest roadblock, or I want to get from where I'm at, which is great, to elite level, wherever they are, whatever obstacle is in their way, what is one practical tip that you could recommend somebody to do following this episode?
Honestly, get rid of shame. And that's way easier said than done. None of us like think shame is just this great thing, but we all kind of carry an element of it. Shame leads to secrets, and secrets keep us stuck, right? Whether, you're somebody that is more of a person that talks about their shame or wears it on their sleeve. I am not. I will put up the front and be, strong ass chick in order to hide the shame, right? But it's still there. And as long as you have and entertain shame in your life, there will be an element of stuckness that will frustrate the shit out of you. It serves zero good And the understanding my Enneagram type and that of others has allowed me to almost completely eliminate it from my life. It sneaks in every once in a while because we're human beings and things happen. And it's like, ugh, the woulda, coulda, shoulda things. But I know that it serves absolutely zero good. And if you really are saying that you want to make a difference in your life, in this world, in your book, then you must be 100% unconditionally committed and consistent with the process of eliminating shame from your soul. And that can only happen with true compassion. You can say all the I ams that I want. You can meditate all you want. You can hire all the coaches you want. But this is a muscle that you must build, and it doesn't get built overnight. We don't all walk into the gym wanting the J-Lo booty, ladies, and then tomorrow have it. It takes consistency, it takes pain, it takes resistance being piled on sometimes. And this kind of shame eliminating process is the number one thing that is keeping you stuck. And so if you really commit to that, and I am, and there are times we want to be in bed with shame because it just keeps us safe. Stop it. Stop it. It's the one thing. And I don't say stop it to beat yourself even more that you got it. Right? It's like we got to know what we're working with here. And once you know, you can start to move the needle in the right direction and take yourself through a grieving process, whether it's an identity, relationships, business, whatever that looks like. In order to get through and into acceptance and transformation, you have to feel all the feelings, all of them, and take yourself through it. And compassion is the only way through it. Shame will keep you stuck. So that would honestly, that's the number one thing.
Compassion wins.
Always.
Compassion wins. So, look, I don't have a J-Lo booty, nor am I on the market to getting it. But if somebody wants the J-Lo booty in the form of learning how to work with you to get to that next level for themselves, whether it's listening to your podcast, private coaching, bringing you out to a mastermind or guest coaching, how do people get in touch with you? How do we listen to the show, and how do we work with you?
Yeah, podcast is a great thing if you want to dabble and see like, okay, I want to learn more, but I want to be a fly on the wall. That's how I would have approached things. So I totally get it. Leadership Formula is the podcast, over 250 episodes. Instagram, Tracy_O'Malley. I'm on there. I'm available in the DMs. My website, which is in the process of getting an overhaul, you can still access it, tracyo'malley.com. The work with me section will have you have the ability to do a 90-minute typing session, which I've heard is like better than 10 years of therapy. For sure. It's not, we get your type properly. We go through your entire framework and actually how to use it in your life. If you are interested in bringing me in for a mastermind or your business and team or your marriage or your family, just hit me up either on Instagram or there's an email on that website, tracyo'malley.com. I can do all the things.
Perfect. So there you have it, you guys. Make sure you go check out Tracy on all of the things. You can click the links below or just pause and listen and go do the follow, go to the website, go do all of these amazing ways to get in touch with Tracy. Look, compassion wins. Who you are is amazing. We just want you to be even greater, right? We want you to keep pushing. We want you to keep achieving. We want you to keep doing the damn thing. All right. We're in the game of life, and I want you to play the damn game. So, Tracy, thanks so much for coming on here. Thanks so much for being an incredible guest. And for everyone that enjoyed this, take a picture. Let Tracy know that you were vibing with her Tracy bombs that she dropped today. All right. So I appreciate you, Tracy. Thanks for coming on. And to everyone who listened to this point, I appreciate your time, your energy, and your attention. We'll see you on the next one.